It is a huge honor to be live in London with Dr. Neel Jaiswal. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Thanks for inviting me.
We got the neat background. You are such an amazing guy on so many levels. I want to start off first with you're in love with cars.
I do love cars, I have to say.
So is it boys and their toys?
Boys and toys, yeah.
So tell them about your love affair with cars. I know on Facebook you're into that.
Well, absolutely. Well, really from a young age, I mean, we all grew up drawing cars, and when our dads get new cars, it's quite an emotional thing. So it connects back to our childhood, I think, a lot as well. And I think dentists are those kind of people. We're very technical, and we like thrills, and we sometimes have some disposable income. So a nice car is a nice reward. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I started a Facebook group because although we like cars, you don't really want to show off about it too much in the public eye. You want to keep it reserved and be very British about it. So just made a little private group, and really at that time dentistry was getting a little bit sour. People weren't enjoying themselves so much, and I wanted to bring the profession together in some other way. So I started a Facebook group called Turbine, and from there...
So facebook.com/turbine?
Yeah.
Turbine?
Yeah.
And what turbine? That's in a handpiece. That's
Turbine's
not a car.
handpiece, so it's kind of got the dental thing, and then it kind of fits in with turbos. But yeah, it's a private group.
Oh, turbocharged,
Yeah, exactly.
turbine handpiece.
Yeah, there's
okay.
a kind of a link.
Okay.
And we've got about 1,000 members now, which is fantastic. And we do some CPD. We're out to enjoy ourselves and learn and mentor each other. So we've done probably about 10, 15 events now at Silverstone, Caterham. We've done some fashion events and other whiskey events. So
all in the UK or all in London?
All in the UK, really. Kind of. We've got members from all over the UK and in Germany and a couple in America as well. So it's a really fun project. It keeps me busy, and I'm hoping just to bring dentists together, really, that we can enjoy something and talk to each other.
So from 1,000 dentists on your group, what is the most famous dental car? Can you say that dentists like 1 or 2 cars more than others?
Well, we actually did a poll because I'm trying to work with some manufacturers to make sure we get looked after. So we did a little poll, and the majority of dentists have got BMW, Mercedes, Audi. So we go German.
BMW? Say it again.
BMW, Mercedes, and Audi.
Okay.
So
all German.
All the German cars, traditional good cars that do well, and there's lots of different ranges, and Porsche as well. So Porsche is probably... If you have to say which is a dentist car, probably a Porsche 911 is the essential.
Well, I would think the people that would eat that up and take care of you well would be all the German companies. Ivoclar, Cavo, Sirona.
Fantastic.
I'm sure they would love to hear
We'll have to talk.
that all the dentists around the world love German cars.
Well, they've got a reputation for engineering and quality, which is something that we look for in our equipment as well as our personal belongings. And then we've got some really interesting members with some McLarens and some Ferraris and some Lamborghinis.
McLarens?
Yeah, McLaren is like the British Ferrari, let's say. So it's quite.
So a McLaren is a British car?
Absolutely, yeah.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah, they're into Formula One. They've been going for
okay.
Lots. They've got a long history of motor racing, and they're really show-stopping cars.
McLaren, I would think that's Irish.
McLaren. Yeah, I think Bruce McLaren. I think he probably was Scottish.
Okay, so
I'm sure somebody will correct me.
Is Scottish Mac, M-A-C, and then Irish Mick, M-C, or is that too oversimplistic?
I think there's a lot of crossover between the Celts and the Scottish, but I think Mac and MC are both Scottish in my mind.
Well, it's kind of funny when you go around the world that the Chinese are stuck on this business model that we'll just make it so cheap you'll have to buy it. And the Americans are stuck on a model that we'll just advertise it to you so many times, eventually you'll just buy it. But the Germans are just, we'll make it so damn good you'll have to buy it. And I can tell you that going into German manufacturing companies of Ivoclar and Liechtenstein, of Cavo, Sirona, and then going into dental manufacturing places all over the world in every continent but Antarctica, the Germans they're just at a different level. I mean, down to, like, Americans, people are always saying, well, where's the bathroom? And the Germans, you look at the floor and there's a blue line that takes you all the way. On Germans, above every light switch is the instructions of when to turn on, when to turn off. Everybody has a manual. The Germans they're just at a different level of detail, operations, logistics. You go into an American manufacturing plant, and I mean, it's messy. There might be trash. It looks unorganized. The Germans, like, every single thing has a spot and a place, and it's just.
And I think that's the Japanese as well. They're very efficient, and it's down to culture in a way, what the people are like and how they're brought up, how they're raised. So I think that sort of crosses over all borders.
The greatest investor in American history, one of them anyway, was what was it called? It was Peter Lynch and How to Beat the Street.
Okay.
And why all the other analysts would sit in their office and read, stats and statistics and 401ks and 10Qs, he would get in his car and he would do a road trip and he would drive to each company. And he said, I want to see what it's like when I get there unannounced. Is it clean? Did they greet me? Was the CEO even working?
So a secret shopper.
Yeah, a secret shopper. And he would say, if the CEO couldn't see me, he's looking at 10, 20, 30 years of data. If that CEO was too busy to see him, the stock went down. If the CEO was working, it was clean, it was organized. He said, I want to see it to believe it. So you started a British Academy of Microscope Dentistry at bamd.co. By the way, in the United States, it's always .com. But in the UK, I see .co, and then I see .co.uk. So what's the difference between .com and .co or not?
Well, .com tends to be global. .co.uk tends to be Britain. And then because we're a little bit later on the scene, all the good names go. So we found .co, which works quite well for us.
So you can just do a .co name. You can just do .co.
Yeah, and .en. There's lots of them now, so there's a whole range of things.
Okay.
But traditionally, it's .co.uk.
How did you get interested into microscope dentistry, and what would my homies find at bamd.co? So British Academy Microscope Dentistry.co. What's all that about?
Well, I suppose, like most people in England, we hadn't really heard of microscopes. We don't really use them very often. And as you know, it's kind of very government-based healthcare, so it was quite a luxury to have a microscope. And when I started my practice, I got a lot of influences from Frank Spear, as we were talking about earlier, about multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary dentistry. So we quite early on had an endodontist who quite rightly said, well, if I'm going to do a root canal, I'm going to need a microscope. So there was two ways to go at that point. One is to get the cheapest microscope and put him in the corner and lock him in, and that's what endodontists do, put their head down and come out at the end of the day. Or actually thought, well, if we're going to get one, let me see if I can use it as well. So that started my journey on using microscopes. And then with my friend Rudy, we kind of went abroad because there wasn't a lot going on in England. So we went to Microvision with Nazari and also had ties with the European Society of Microscope Dentistry as well. And we realized, actually, all that beautiful stuff we're seeing on Facebook, which I don't know how to do it, if you can see it, you can do it. So it made us realize that actually having the microscope just improves your work no end and it raises your standards. And we really wanted to bring that back to England because we just thought we're falling behind Eastern Europe. We always look down on Eastern Europe being quite sort of British and snobbish about our education. But actually, I'm a bit worried about British education. I think we're getting a bit de-skilled, demotivated and devalued. And I really hope starting something like this, which is pretty much just trying to bring people together, a bit like my car group, and we all learn from each other. So it's been a really nice journey.
So do you think that the quality of dentistry can sometimes start coming down in a country if the reimbursement insurance is bad? I mean, I notice in a country where, say like Singapore, where there's no insurance and all the people buy quality dentistry just like we buy quality iPhones and you buy quality clothes and cars. Do you think the fact that the NHS only pays you £100 for a root canal could have an effect on the quality of the root canal being done?
Well, if you ask the NHS and the government, you're not allowed to say that there's any difference in quality in what on the NHS or privately. So, bottom line, you're not allowed to say there is a difference. Human nature and talking business, you could probably say if you're getting remunerated more for something, it probably allows you to spend more time on it, better materials, better equipment.
Well, I mean, are your fancy cars cost more than the Chevys made in America? So I noticed none of your fancy cars were American Chevys and Pontiacs.
Getting a few Mustangs over here now. People are enjoying those.
Is that right?
Yeah. But no, I think definitely people value what they pay for to some degree. But also I do believe in affordable dentistry for people as well. It's just we've got a really poor system at the moment. And if there was a way of making it equitable, so if that's the type of dentistry you want, great. And if you want this type of dentistry, that's fine. And both have their place. But at the moment, I think it's a very difficult position we're in at the moment where the cost of a root canal in the NHS I think it's about 40, 50 pounds. I mean, I don't know how they're doing it and how well they're doing it on that time.
So then I'm taking it then that you're not in the NHS.
I am, so I'm not at all. So we started about 5 years ago as a purely private practice.
Okay, so you're sorry to interrupt. You're 45.
That's it.
So you got out of school in 96.
Mm-hmm.
So when you came out, did you go straight to fee-for-service or did you do the NHS for a while? Tell us about your journey.
Well, absolutely. We did. It was the old NHS system, which was a little bit different to now. So we do something called vocational training where you're mentored in a practice, and I did that in Norfolk and had a really good, kind mentor who was about local patient care. So I did a year or two there, and then really getting some skills I wanted to develop, went into oral surgery in the hospital in Lincoln and Louth, so in Lincolnshire, beautiful part of the town, part of the country, and just got a lot of surgical skills there. And then unfortunately to do maxillofacial surgery you have to be doubly qualified, which is a very long journey. So although I enjoyed oral surgery, I kind of wanted to get back into dentistry. And then the opportunity came to work in Australia for 2 years. So I was a young man, and I thought the world's my oyster.
Come on, whenever a Briton goes to Australia, he's committed a crime, and he's going to jail down there. Were you sent to Australia in a prison colony? This is Dentistry Uncensored. Tell the truth.
I'm afraid it was perfectly legitimate reasons. I thought.
Were you the first Brent that went to Australia that didn't have to go to jail?
Well, they didn't put me in quarantine.
How many enemies did I just make with that statement?
But I have to say, I mean, a few of my friends had gone to Australia, and I suppose one of the reasons for going as well as the opportunity, I was a little bit jealous. I thought these guys are going to Australia, and the world's becoming a smaller place. And once you're in practice, it's very hard to get out of practice. And I thought, while I'm young, I'm going to do as many opportunities as I can.
So, my brother, we were born and raised in Kansas. And my brother moved there 2 years ago. And everybody in Kansas keeps saying, well, Paul, when are you moving back? And I've gone down there and visited him twice with my boys. And it's like, you can't move from the armpit of America, Kansas, to the greatest city that I've seen yet on the planet. I mean, you routinely ask, you've lectured in 50 countries. If you had to just pick one, where would you go and never come back? It's got to be Sydney. How cool is Sydney?
Sydney's a fantastic place.
And the weather.
And great food.
And the public transportation. And the fact my brother still hasn't bought a car 2 years.
Yeah.
You don't need a car. You don't need a coat. It's just...
Well,
but anyway, so did you go to Sydney or did you go to Melbourne or Perth?
I lived in Sydney for about a year. Absolutely loved it. And it's a fantastic place. And... almost a second home in my mind. I really enjoyed myself. And then again, just in the interest of sort of travelling and seeing Australia, I moved to Queensland for a few months as well. So
now, what would Queensland be? Melbourne?
Townsville and Cairns, so right on the northeast coast, Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, so
much more tropical.
Past Gold Coast.
Yeah, further up.
Going north towards the equator.
Yeah. I stayed there a couple of months, and then it got too hot and humid for me, and I thought, okay, I've done my bit. And I did some interesting work with Aboriginal clinics and flying dentist kind of stuff. You go in a little plane and you land on these remote areas. So again, learn a lot of oral surgery skills there when you've got these, these disenfranchised populations. But I loved Australia, and I could easily live there. But I love traveling, a bit like yourself.
Yeah.
And traveling out of Australia is hard work. 5 hours from Sydney takes you to Perth. And I think the glorious thing about London is, there's probably 30, 40 countries within 7 hours. So I'm really trying to get to as many countries as I can. I love traveling.
But the hard thing for me to reconcile from Sydney to London would be the weather. I mean, the weather. How would you compare the weather in Sydney to London?
I have to say, when I moved back from Sydney, I was probably depressed for about 6 months because it was all living in London. It was all closed. I couldn't see the blue sky. So it did hit me a lot. But luckily, we've got Italy and France and Spain.
Yeah.
Within 3 or 4 hours. You've just got to make the effort of getting out there.
So what's the comparison in size? Would I'm guessing Sydney would be 4 million, London would be 8 million? Would London be about twice as big as Sydney?
I think it's probably Greater London, because there's London and Greater London.
Right.
Which is almost stretching out to the M25 now, which is a circular ring road. I'd probably say there's 12, 14 million.
12 to 14 million. And what would you say?
Sydney's about 3. I think.
So, yeah.
And it's spread out. It's not densely populated, and even in Sydney.
But another thing, Sydney and New York, well, America basically. The one thing those three countries have in common is, like, say, when you go to Poland, it's 98% Polish.
Yeah.
When you go to Vietnam, it's all Vietnamese. You go to Korea, it's all Korean. You go to Japan, it's all Japanese. But when you go to London or Sydney or America, it's just cosmopolitan. I mean, you could meet someone from every corner on Earth,
And
on
Rio.
every corner in America. In Rio,
Rio is really multicultural
Rio
as well.
de Janeiro.
Yeah. Lots of Japanese and Germans and Brits.
Well,
and historically.
yes, the Japanese and Germans,
Yeah.
because after World War II,
Yeah.
all the
Went to
Germans
South
that
America.
thought they were going to get killed
Yeah.
after losing the war. So when you go to San Paulo, you're driving down San Paulo, then all of a sudden you think you're in Tokyo. All the signs are Japanese, and then you cross out of that,
Peru
and
had
you hit a
Japanese,
German area.
Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And they have sushi and ceviche, which is very Japanese influence.
And so the Japanese the industrials making all the war machines from Germany and Japan went there after the war. But you know what's interesting about Australia is on a social level is in the United States they have about 30,000 suicides a year, and the highest ethnic or demographic group is young male homosexuals who are going to church and hearing how evil they are, and they kill themselves. Well, when they invented the airplane, homosexuals who just couldn't take it anymore were jumping on airplanes and flying to Sydney, because that's the southern hemisphere deal. Little known fact, Sydney has the highest gay population in the world. They have 400,000 gay men living there, and that's why my brother, who's gay, growing up in Kansas, his two older sisters are nuns. I mean, all he's ever heard his entire life is how bad and evil he was. And now he's down there where he's welcome, and so he's never coming back. So it's kind of like he left America because America couldn't accept the fact that he was... Yeah.
But he's in a wonderful place now and well supported.
So back to microscope dentistry. Dentists always say they want to be a higher quality dentist, and they always say, if you go to dentist, you say, well, are you a quality dentist or are you a shitty dentist?
Yeah.
They're saying, I'm a quality dentist. But I think the easiest way to be a quality dentistry is just magnification. If you switch from naked eye to loops, you're a better dentist.
Of course.
You switch from taking an impression to optically scanning and seeing that impression 40 times larger. I've never looked at my prep at 40 times. I've never looked at it and said, okay, we'll scan that and go. You look at it like, what the hell? Am I crazy? And you go back, and it's also made me, that's what I like the most about CAD-CAM, like getting a CIRAC machine. I'm not convinced on the chairside milling, but I'm in love with the optical scanning because now I use more burrs, I use more finishing stuff. You just look at that prep 40 times larger, and you're just going to be a better dentist. And the same with microscope. I noticed the best endodontists in the world, they all, when they're done cleaning and shaping and they're all done ready to fill, they always pull down a scope, and they might find a missing canal. They might find crud in one of the canals. So do you agree that magnification is the easiest way to increase your quality?
I definitely think magnification, intraoral cameras, photography, and really reviewing your work is the best way to improve. I sort of talk to a lot of young dentists and help mentor a few of them in different study clubs. And they always say, should I do coist? Should I do spear? Should I do this? Should I do that course? I just say, start with photography, take a picture of your work, look at it, and get someone else to critique it. And if you look at it on a big photograph, or on a microscope, or with loops, you will see how to improve next time. You can learn yourself. It's just self-reflection. Okay,
now I'm going to embarrass you and get you in trouble because you said coist or spear, and I want to hold your feet down, because the problem the young kids are, podcasting is a youth behavior. I'm 53. These guys are 30 and under. By the way, you can always email me, howard@dentaltown.com, and tell me guests you want to hear, questions. But I get lots of emails every day from this, and they're always probably 20% are still in dental school, and the other 80% are probably within 5 years out there under 30. But when you say something like coist or spear, they're saying, I got student loan debt. There's only so much money. There's only so much time. So I got to pick coist or spear. So they're always telling me details. The guy said he liked composite. He didn't say which one. He said he liked, he places implants. He didn't say, I'm at the convention. There's 175 different implant systems. So I'm supposed to pin you down for details. What would you say if the young homie was saying, well, would you go to coist or spear?
So very direct.
I would say coist just because I love Greek food. I love heroes. I'm already thinking of the white sauce on the lamb. No. But what would you say? I
have to say, I think every student has a mentor. So you've got to figure out if coist or spear fits within your ethos, your culture. So, and also there's little things like, where do you want to travel to? Who do you get on with? So I think they're both fantastic, and I've got friends who've done both, and I've done spear quite a few times. and some of my best friends have done Coyce. And I think both are fantastic places to visit. From England, it's a bit of a trek, as you know from Arizona. But
non-stop flight.
Non-stop flight makes it
that's
much
why
more
you're
doable.
going to Spear, because it's 9.5 hours. What a great flight for decades. London, man, a 5-hour flight to New York, a 3-hour layover, then a 6.5-hour flight. And now me and Ryan and Greg went to airport, 9.5 hours.
It definitely makes it easier. So logistics help. But I've seen John Coyce and Frank Spear videos. I've seen them speak in London. And really, I just took a decision on who I felt, spoke to me the most. And you wouldn't go wrong with either, to be honest.
Right.
I think the Spear stuff is a lot of Dawson-based stuff, and some of the teachers like Gary DeWood who are excellent there. And they really give you a really good overview of practical dentistry. Whereas I think Coyce is probably got a lot more to offer, but there's a lot more courses. So it depends if you want to get an overview and do a lot quickly and learn quickly, or if you're one of these people who likes a little bit more thorough and a little bit more staged. But I'd love to do both.
What I would recommend, what I would tell you young kids is this. From my 30 years of observation is that 18% of dentists get burned out and they're drinking alcohol and they're eating Vicodin, and 18 out of 100 of American dentists will go to inpatient rehab one time in their career, which is the same as the general population of America. So there's no difference there. Whereas anesthesiologists, it's 38% because they have access to all the drugs. But in my 30-year observation is the people that go to Coyce or Spear or Pankey or Dawson or LVI or Mish or any camp, they get motivated. It's more for their mental health. They get motivated. They meet friends that are going for it. So you're a summation. You are just a product of the 5 people you hang around with the most.
Absolutely. You're as good as you hang around with.
So if one of those people is John Coyce or Frank Spear or Peter Dawson, and the other 3 guys at that course, you become elite just by that. And you avoid mediocrity and burnout and disease and depression and substance abuse and everything that goes bad.
But I'm looking at a couple of courses to go, not so much for the learning, but I just miss the sunshine and miss the positivity, miss the people. And again, I just want that little injection of, exuberance and vitality that you get from going to these places. Because the Americans, and as a dentist, the way Americans treat you is much nicer than here. Here in England, we haven't got a great reputation and a great image, whereas whenever you go to the States, and having a British accent, you always get well looked after and admired, which is quite nice for all the hard work we've done.
Well, I'm glad to hear the United States is doing something good.
By the way, success is a good thing in America, and in England, it's not so good.
Well, a friend of mine in Canada, who's the laser man in Vancouver, British? Glenn
Van Ass.
Glenn Van Ass, Canada's most classiest dentist. I don't know who's more amazing out of Canada. Was it Glenn Van Ass or Pamela Anderson? It's a tie.
They have their plus and minus.
But what Glenn Van Ass says, the difference between America and Canada is America, if you build $1 million practice and you're successful, all your homies will say, man, right on. What did you do? Tell me how to do it. But in a lot of countries, if you're successful in dentist, your peers are like, what's wrong with you? You shouldn't be profiting off of our profession. Is Britain more like, go for it, make $1 million, kick ass?
Absolutely not.
Or it's more like Canada?
I think we have an island culture. So it's a small island, which in people's mind is limited abundance. America is that frontier spirit. We've got the whole world to conquer. There's lots of resources. Everyone can be successful. I think here we think if you're successful, then you're taking it from somebody else. If you've got land, it's at somebody else's detriment. And also, it's quite a nice thing not to be overtly showy and to be reserved, and we call that sort of not being nouveau riche about things. So I quite like that Britishness of not being too flash and too vulgar, which is changing a little bit. But I do think that if someone's done well, I always say, well done, how did you do it? And I want to be successful as well so I can help the people around me. But it's still not a British culture to be like that.
Well, you say British people are snobby, but I have to admit, being from Kansas, there's no way you could look at Americans like me from Kansas and think that is lower class. There's no way. We can be. This is Dentistry Uncensored.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Where you're from, it's where you're going to.
It's not where you're from, it's where you're going to. I like that. So let's talk about. I love it the way you guys talk about starting a squat private practice. So a squat. So in the United States, starting it would be a de novo practice.
A de novo practice, okay.
Which would be French, right?
Yeah.
But so what are your thoughts on starting a squat practice?
Well, at the time, you could have gone either way. You think, shall I buy an existing practice? And the advantages are cash flow and you've got patients. But for me, again, having gone to Spear and seeing a different kind of dentistry, I thought that's going to be quite hard to break down all those patterns in the patients and in the staff and reintroduce a new culture. So I really thought my practice sorry about the noise, has really developed just from having every patient come in and having a comprehensive exam and having the time and the staff on not having to relearn new skills and just say, this is our line in the sand and this is what we do. Whereas I think if you buy an existing practice, it's a bit like our politicians. When they're going into an existing government, quite a lot of changes are going to be very hard. Whereas if you're starting from scratch, you've got all the issues of cash flow and having to work your ass off, but at the end of it, hopefully you've got something that's more in your culture and ethos.
I'm so sorry to hear about you lost a politician yesterday.
Oh yes, that's awful news.
That was awful news and awfully rare out here.
Yeah, I'm afraid, luckily for us, we don't have the same gun issues that you guys have over there, so anything tragic like this is rare and it should be rare and shocking.
But, so, just in case I missed it, a politician was gunned down by one of her own constituents?
I'm not sure of the whole facts, and I'm sure there's some mental illness issues, which probably reflects back into how we're treating these people in our care, and the finances for this kind of resources are going as well. So there's a really good book. I can't remember the name of it, but it was how something that happens now, you can look back in the past and see where it instigated from, and it might not be related. But I think it's one of those things. Just the knock-on effect of small other things then leads to another effect.
Huh. It is literally insane.
Freakonomics. Remember that?
Yeah. That's a great one. But it is literally insane in the United States how so many of these mass gunmen are being treated for mental illness, yet can go buy basically a machine gun.
I know, it's
like, how
devastating, isn't it?
Well, it's just like it's almost. When you see something that glaringly insane, you just have to look at America and say, really?
Well,
and watch them all defend it.
Well,
watch them all defend
50 mils of water on a plane because they kind of see a cause and effect, and you kind of think a big shotgun is a pretty big cause and effect.
But you're being treated for mental illness, and you can go buy a military assault rifle. And when you say that to Americans, they all just stand up and start explaining how that's right, and that's normal.
Well, people, when they have a belief, it's very hard to shake it.
And I grew up with that because my two oldest sisters left high school and went right into the Catholic nunnery. And, so when I'm talking to a dentist, like during a seminar, I always think to myself before the seminar, okay, could I give a one-day seminar to my two Catholic nun sisters, and at the end of the day, they be Hindu?
Yeah,
are Buddhist, are Jewish.
Could be tricky. I went to a Catholic school as well.
It would never happen. So you have to start thinking to yourself, okay, you're not going to change someone's mind on the big picture. So how do you go into the details? So I want to go back to that. How did Frank Spear change your religion or the big picture, or did he not? Did you go to him because you were already of the religion of what he was saying, and you went there because you wanted to find a high priest that was talking about what you already believed in, or did he change your religion?
I think it was kind of both. I was on that journey.
Or is this analogy so bad we should just start with a new question?
This is starting to get into Star Wars territory. No, I had my local mentors like Raj Ahluwalia, who's a Panky Spear guy, and again some of my local mentors, and I was learning, and Chris Orr. And then I realized, where did they get their knowledge from? And they told me their journeys. And again, it was just spending time, the people I wanted to be around with and be like. So I learned that their journey started in Arizona or in Florida. And then, having gone once, I ended up going 5, 6, 7 times and being a faculty member and all those things. So it is such an uplifting experience, but it is at time out of the surgery and cost. But then life's more about other things than money. It's about fulfillment. So I think Frank the whole philosophy is fantastic, and it is patient-centered. And same again with all the other schools, in the States. Whereas in England, we tend to be more functionally based. So we start at the back first, get that all healthy, and we kind of think that's the more noble thing to do, and cosmetics is a bad word. So historically, our British schools have thought, let's get everything fixed and healthy, and then the cosmetic stuff is if and when. Whereas I think the other reverse role works really well, because actually if you get the cosmetics right, I think in nature, if something's pretty, it usually works well. So I think the two do go hand in hand.
And when people like the looks of their teeth, they're more likely to take care of them.
I think absolutely. If I give you a brand new car, you're less likely to a rental, for example. You're more likely to take care of it than if I give you a battered old car.
Yeah. And I also, I've done Spear. I've gone to 6 weeks at the Pankey Institute.
Fantastic.
I've done all those courses. And again, looking back, like I remember after seeing Peter Dawson 3 times, and I was a kid, I realized I'd seen him 3 times with my same 3 friends. And and I look back at, when I look back at the Mission Institute, I got my fellowship at the Mission Institute, but the memories are my homies I was taking it with. And that was the start of our journey and our friendship and so again, it's not so much Frank Spear, it's the people around you.
Yeah.
And being the sum of the 5 dentists you hang around with the most. And I look back at each one of those incidents and, that's where I met my buddy, this guy. Yeah. And that's where I met my buddy. And so then the buddies I picked up at all of those institutes have meant more to my life than the actual instructor. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And again, I think for young dentists, starting this journey might be a bit formidable, traveling on their own and not knowing what to expect. But if you can find someone who thinks like you and wants to be like you, and do it together, I think you'll get a lot more out of it, and you'll meet new people and you'll all grow together. But absolutely, it's like when Gary DeWood comes over or Leanne Brady comes over, I'm almost happy to see them, let alone learn from them as well, because I know just being around those people, it'll elevate me. Yeah,
Leanne Brady, she's an amazing person. Yeah. I don't know how she does it. She is in a different country every weekend. Every time
She's getting her air miles, yeah.
God, it's just...
Well,
I'd crazy.
Would love it if she set up something over here, and we could. That's where I'd be going.
If she'd set up an institute over here?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic, because she really resonates with me. I spent some time with Leanne last year when friends brought her over, and I just instantly thought, whatever you're saying really makes sense to me. So again, it's just finding the right mentor.
And look at her resume. She was faculty at Pankey. She was faculty at Spear. So she not many... You can't find many faculty at any of these camps that were faculty at other camps.
Absolutely.
She's been faculty. She could be faculty wherever she wanted to be.
Definitely. One of the world's most influential dentists, I think, as well as yourself.
Well, not me. I'm not. I'm actually the world's best looking dentist. That's different than the most
I didn't mean to laugh there. I'm sorry, Howard.
Yeah, I'm not the most influential. I am the Matt Damon.
You're the pinup of dentistry.
Well, actually, me and Ryan were joking that for search engine optimization, we're going to start a website called dentalporn.com, because if you look at the search engine, I'm not making this up. It's almost 30% of all search engines have to do with porn. So we're sitting there thinking, okay, well, if we put dental, let's just increase our search engine.
Are we taking our tops off now?
So again, on this show, podcasting is a youth behavior. Old people don't do it. So the data I got is about 20% of these guys are juniors or seniors in dental school, and the rest have just been out for 5 years. And a lot of them are thinking about, right now they're working corporate dentistry, and they're working in some big chain, and they want to start a squat practice. But, I'm getting paid $150,000 a year, and this is comfortable, and what you're saying is quite, it's scary. Talk to that person. How do they know if they should stay squat in their job where it's the comfort zone versus doing something batshit crazy and frightening and leaving the security of the nest and starting a squat practice?
I suppose it depends on your personality type and the people around you and your support. Probably the best way, is the safest way, is to sort of, if you're happy where you are, you've got a long-term plan, and you've got a supportive practice, and you're heading on the same path, it's probably a good idea to stay where you are, be the best dentist you can, encourage and mold the people around you, and use some of your earnings to either improve yourself or in other investments. And I think there's nothing wrong with being an associate in a great practice. And there are some great practices out there. Conversely, if it's not a great practice, the longer you're there, the more de-skilled and demotivated you'll be. So there is either a move for you to either move to a better practice and again increase your skills, your photography, all those things, and hang around people you want to hang around with. And at the right time, at the right age, when you feel you've got good leadership skills, financial support, you know your dentistry to some degree, then I think it's really a matter of phasing from being an associate and into a private practice and trying to change the balance over time. But then my personality was all or nothing. If we're going to do it, do it. So I stopped my job. I took a year off traveling, having the luxury of not being married and kids. I had didn't need much.
That's always a luxury.
Absolutely. So
that's always a luxury.
That allowed me to suffer a little bit, because obviously you don't want your family suffering around you, but it was just me. And are
you still not married with no kids?
That's why I've got some nice cars.
Oh my God, you are a genius. You made it to 45 with no marriage.
I know.
You kept all your money.
That's why I've got some hair.
Unbelievable.
But no, I think it's a brave thing to do if to do it, and it's hard work, and you don't know what you don't know. So talk to the right people, look at their journeys, and try and do it sensibly. And again, we've got Brexit coming again, so the financial markets are another factor as well. So there's a time and a place.
You got what coming?
Brexit, where we're doing a referendum to whether to stay in Europe or not.
Oh, that's this week.
Yeah.
So what do you call that? Brexit?
Brexit. That's the terminology they've come up with.
Say it slow.
Brexit.
Oh,
Britain exiting.
Britain exit Brexit.
So we'll see how that goes. I'd rather stay in Europe. I'm a global type person. I like traveling. I like the advantages it gives. But again, all these little things happen in life, and it's a matter of
now I want you to talk to the boys, because I think the boys in dental school they're not hearing what I've been seeing. It seems like for 30 years, girl dentists will say, well, I want to go back to where I was born in Oklahoma City, and there's two guys that are offering a job, and this guy has kept his staff and his wife, and it's a perfect harmony. He only pays 30%, and I have to pay half my lab bill, but I just think this would be a very mentally healthy way, and I could mentor from him and learn how to run a staff. The boys are more likely to say, well, there's two job options. One will pay 35% and the other pay 30%, half lab bill. I think I'll make $2 an hour more at this one. So they just go straight for the money.
Which is short-sighted.
And then they could be in a completely dysfunctional, crazy deal where Dennis has massive staff turnover. He's on his fourth wife. He's doing insurance fraud. The whole place up. But it seems like women are far more better decision makers of finding a job where they're going to learn something outside of clinical dentistry or mentorship or mental health. Do you see that, or do you not see that, or is that just my observation in America?
I see that to some degree, and I think it's changing. A lot of UK dentists are female and very highly educated and very driven women, and they are, especially London is such an expensive place to live in, that it is becoming a factor in terms of what am I earning, and it's also a matter of their self-worth. I feel I deserve this. But I think it's what we said earlier, it's not where you're coming from, it's where you're going. So if you feel like, okay, they're not paying me, but it's a great practice, I can improve this, the grosses are going to grow, I'm going to grow as a person. So I'd be looking at a 5-year plan of thinking, I'm actually going to be more successful in this practice, even though it's not quite what I think it should be now, as opposed to somewhere where I may earn $1 or $2 more, but it's going to de-skill and demotivate me over time, and I'm actually going to earn less. So I think guys maybe are just thinking a bit too short term, and it's probably as you know, where do you want to be in 5-10 years and work backwards is a much better way than just being reactionary.
Okay, now I want to ask you a politically incorrect question.
Okay.
But I get this a lot in China, Singapore, Brazil. They would be too polite to say this to you, but they would say, Britain is they would call you a bleeding heart liberal of wanting to provide free dentistry through the NHS to people. In China, it makes their brain hurt when they sit there and think, okay, you're drinking Pepsi Cola. You're not brushing and flossing. Why would a government subsidize your behavioral disease? I mean, whereas, if you got struck with leukemia or cancer or, an insurance problem, yeah, massive sympathy and empathy. But you got a Coke in one hand and you haven't brushed your teeth in 30 days. So talk to the Singaporean dentist and the dentist in Beijing who's saying, Neel, you should not have the NHS. The NHS is subsidizing poor human behavior. And don't be a bleeding heart socialist. How was that too hard of a question for you, Neel?
Well, it's a very big question. I think as a society we have a responsibility to look after the weaker parts of our community, no doubt. Dostoevsky said we can base government on how they treat their prisoners, and not making the analogy is how we treat our disenfranchised and poor and helpless people. It's really important that we do look after them. And it is frustrating, whether it's a medical or dental thing, when you see people who aren't looking after themselves and costing the state a lot of money. But again, you can't look at a person, you have to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture really comes down to, as we said before, things that happened in the past, and it's education. And if we can educate our school kids to eat healthy, to exercise, to leave their phones behind and go and play in the park. So I think we have to accept the status quo as it is, because I think it's going to be very hard to change. But all our funding should be on dental healthcare for kids, and for education, and for hygiene and therapists. So I think I can see what you're saying, and it can be a bit hurtful when you're working really hard and you're seeing people what you think is wasting your money, and government's wasting your money. But actually, at its cause, I think it's a great thing, but it just needs implementing well, and education has to start from childhood.
Okay, but then when you talk about education, tell me your thoughts on this. When I go to China and Hong Kong and Singapore, Coca Cola can advertise on every billboard, TV, and radio. But if a dentist advertised, their license would be taken away. So on education, how can dentists around the world educate you to brush and floss when Coke is on every billboard and commercial? And if I did that, in Hong Kong, you do any of that in China, Hong Kong, or Singapore, your license is gone.
So obviously they've got huge resources and huge marketing resources. And really it's down to governments to impose sugar taxes, which is what we're trying to do over here, and ban it from schools, ban it from lunchtime cafeterias, and encourage these big companies to make healthier versions of what they do. And I think that's happening to some degree. And I know in New York you used to have these massive buckets of Coke, and I think they got banned. I don't know if that's still the case with, I think that was Mayor Giuliani at the time or something. But I think all we can do from an individual point of view is encourage social groups to put pressure on the big manufacturers. And again, not putting sweets and soft drink advertisements when children are watching TV.
But do you think the Chinese, Singaporean, Hong Kong dentists should be allowed to advertise?
It's funny because we weren't allowed to advertise until about 10, 15 years ago, and it has changed the way we do dentistry. Just being more competitive has made it a more competitive arena. So one thing has kind of led to another. So in a way, if we didn't advertise at all, we'd all be on the same level playing field. But then again, dentistry's changed so much, and there is so much more things available to people that if they don't know about Invisalign, if they don't know about CEREC, if they didn't know about lasers and microscopes, how would they know? So I think advertising is probably a good idea. And if we can mix the financial stuff with the educational stuff, we'd probably have a nice balance.
Did I even read your bio when we start?
A little bit.
After graduating from Birmingham University Dental Hospital in 1996, Neel has worked as a junior doctor in oral and maxillofacial surgery, then moved to Sydney, Australia, gaining a wide variety of experience. Upon return to the UK, he practiced in London and passed the MFGDP exam at the Royal College of Surgeons. This followed with the undertaking a certificate in surgical implantology at the Eastman Dental Institute and a certificate in facial aesthetics at the Royal College of Surgeons. He then became a vocational trainer, teaching and mentoring young dentists, which continues as his role as the UK director of the Dentinal Tubules Study Club. He has trained at the Spear Dental Institute in Arizona and has co-founded the British Academy of Microscope Dentistry. He has also founded the Turbine Events Facebook group, which provides social and educational monitoring events. Okay, now the Dentinal Tubules, what is his name?
Drew Shah.
I love Drew Shah.
He's a great guy.
Is he in London right now?
Where is he? I don't know where he is. He's been filming somewhere. He's somewhere in England. He's a very hard-working, busy man. A bit like
tell him
yourself.
I'm here for a week if he wants to come
wonderful.
do a. I'm a big fan
Oh,
of. He's got a website like Dental Town. What's his called?
This is called
Tubules?
dentinaltubules.com, and it's a great learning resource again. And Drew grew up in Africa, and really
Kenya.
Yeah, and his ethos again is to bring education out there to everybody, and he works damn hard. And
is his wife a periodontist, or is he a periodontist?
He's a periodontist.
But his wife's a dentist, or
his wife's not a dentist.
But then his sister.
No.
There were 3 of them in a booth. I thought.
Well, I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
But Drew definitely. Well, we started the study clubs about 5 years ago, and it sort of started and stopped. And then again, just from the study clubs I was doing and the way that Drew was interacting with people, we felt there was a real need for again hanging around the right people, and mentoring and sharing. So we started with one study club in my practice in Hertfordshire, and now I think we've got about 25 around the country doing stuff monthly, 10 to 15 in each group.
You're running 25 study clubs with 10 to 15 people a month.
Yeah,
that's huge.
I know, and we're doing BioClear hands-on with the David Clark stuff next week. So lots going on.
David Clark with 3M.
Yeah.
The blonde guy?
Yeah, so his system, the BioClear, which I think changed name slightly. But we're doing a hands-on with them. We all about 20 of us went to Belgium, to GC, and so there's lots and lots of good stuff, lots of mentoring. Now, you
said Belgium GC, because GC is Fuji, General Chemicals,
absolutely,
out of Japan, but they moved their headquarters to Europe for tax purposes.
Well, I think they've got, there's a university in Leuven, which is one of the premier universities in bonding. So I think they wanted to be really associated with that university, and they've got a really good setup.
So they
there.
moved their headquarters to Belgium?
Yeah.
And you thought it was to be associated with the university?
Okay.
I'm
sure there's other reasons.
I love idealism. I love the youthful ideal.
Well, lovely place to go.
Well, when I was in Tokyo, they all said the tax rates in Tokyo got completely insane, and so for their own survival, they had to go to another tax rate.
Well, I think Amazon's in Ireland for some reason, same kind of reasons.
Amazon
is based in Ireland.
Yeah. And Apple. Apple computers, all their profits are taxed out of Ireland. So their phones are made in China.
Yeah.
They're designed in California, and they're taxed in Ireland.
It might be a little bit unfair, maybe.
Yeah. So tell us more about this. So how do you set up 25 study clubs? Is this all done on dentinaltubules.com?
Yeah, really, again, it's just about a lot of people know me and they know Drew, and it's just talking to people, encouraging them, and starting off with just saying, look, get 1 or 2 people together, watch a video, help each other with cases. And
that
from
is
there,
so cool.
It'll attract like-minded people. And we have older people who can act as mentors. We have young guys bringing new ideas in. And it's just a fantastic resource of people. And whether it's through social media and WhatsApp groups, we're all engaging all the time. And it's a little family, really. So I'm really proud that I've taken it this far, and we'll see where it ends up.
Now, is Dentinal Tubules, is that mostly UK?
It's UK, but they've got people subscribing from all over the world, and in India and in Europe as well.
Is it mostly in UK and the old British Empire? I mean, is it mostly English-speaking countries that used to be part of the British Empire?
I think I think also a lot of Europeans are watching it now because we've got Style Italiano on there, and there's a huge amount of guys, a lot of American guys, David Goodall.
The reason I was asking about the British Empire stuff is because it seems like the countries that were part of the British Empire, we call it continuing education, but you call it CPD.
Yeah, continuous professional development.
But it seems like when dentists are going around the country, like if you talk to dentists in South Africa and say, well, how much hours you have to take, or how do you get your license renewed? They say, well, it's whatever England does. We do the same system England. And then you go to New Zealand, they say, well, we do the same as England. You go to Australia, same as England.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of countries that have the
colonial influences.
And when you go to the Middle East, that would be Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So they spend a lot of money on health. And so a lot of the Middle Eastern countries, all their requirements for dental continuing education is whatever Riyadh says. And it's just cut and paste what Riyadh says. So I notice that with so is that what Dentinal Tubules is? CPD is a lot of it for getting continuing education. Absolutely. To get your license renewed?
Well, I think the kind of dentists it attracts get their license renewed with their minimum hours very easily. We all go overboard. So it's probably not for those kind of people who just think, I need to get my points and this is what I'll use, although there is some of that. It's actually for people who have got access to hundreds of speakers from their iPad, and the world is now a very small place, as you know. And to get access to these guys, especially if you're in a country like South Africa, where it may be a long way to travel, to be able to see them in your own home is a fantastic resource. But watching on your own is quite tricky. I think if you've got a group of people around you, again, on the same journey, and talking about it and learning again. So that's why having the local study clubs and having mentoring, you can't just put videos out there, I think. I think that doesn't work as well as having something based around it. A bit like the Pankey and Spear study clubs do to some degree, but they do cases. But I think if you could watch a lecture with a group of people, I think that'll bring more value to it.
I just think that humans are social animals.
Absolutely.
And in the United States, when they were putting people in solitary confinement in, Alcatraz, the psychiatrists come back and saying, if you sentence this guy to death, then that's okay, but you didn't sentence him to death, and he's mentally brain dying. Yeah. And they were bringing in, there was a really great show about that done by, who's that dancing guy, what was his name? But anyway, it was a great show on Alcatraz. Kevin Bacon.
Okay, yeah.
He did a movie on it. And when the judges saw what happened to people in confinement, completely irreversible losing their brain, they shut it down. And I think one of the best ways to motivate dentists is they're social animals. They need to sit around a table. And when I talk to the people at Spear, Imtiaz Manji, he was saying they found that there was a critical mass of a study club that once it just got a little bit too big, and it was a very small number. I think it was just over 10 or a dozen.
It splits into groups.
Dentists start getting isolated and not talking, but if you get a small enough number, they open their shell and they start talking and they start sharing, and then that's what motivates them, and that makes them want to be a better dentist and try new things and all
I think
that
also
stuff.
It's a matter of my groups in the first couple of years were 4 or 5, and it worked brilliantly. Really had a strong bond between everybody. Then we went to 8 or 9. It didn't work as well. We had 2 groups. It was a little bit, people were talking when other people were talking. But then over time, as that group becomes stronger and they know each other more and people get more confident within the group. So I think organic growth is probably the best way. So you can have groups of 10, 15, and either those guys know each other from before or they grow to know each other. But I definitely think 4 or 5 is probably optimal, actually.
And what's funny is these, so there's 35 corporate dental chains in America that do over 100 million, right?
Wow.
And their HR departments say that every one of their practices where it's one dentist versus all their practices with 2 or more dentists, 99% of all their problems are when you get to 2 dentists or more, because you have 2 4,000-pound gorillas, and you're saying, I use glass ionomer, and I'm over here saying, I use amalgam, and then the assistant's like, well, who is my Frank Spear? Do I agree with this dentist or that? And all hell breaks loose when look at religion. Most religions are monotheistic,
Sure.
The buck stops here. But in group practice, the buck stops 3 different places. And so I would say that...
Well, that's one of my decisions, really, to set up on my own. I deliberately just wanted to have sole control, one vision, one voice, influenced by the people around me. But really, I think partnerships can work well and can be very supportive. But again, you can have that dichotomy of leadership.
So you've been with me 55 minutes. You were so nice to share your time on a Saturday with me. You mentioned GC. One of the neat things of traveling around the world is you get to see the same smart Batman dentist treating the same bug very differently. And glass ionomer is one of those. You see it very popular in some countries, and in the United States, it's not even a rounding error. I mean, it's almost never used. What % of your dentist homies in the UK use glass ionomer?
I think we all grew up in dental school using glass ionomers and using them appropriately as an interim restoration. And I think we're all familiar with it, and we all find it very easy to use. And again, on the NHS as well, very easy, simple thing to use and to do good, quick dentistry. So I think it's something that we've all grown up with, and it's part of our culture. I mean, it sounds like in the States they don't use it a lot, but...
I mean, most of my friends have never used it once this year.
So I would use it on a case-by-case basis, and it's really for those cases where they've got very neglected mouths. I really want to get them to a sort of a reasonable health quite quickly without huge for me to do a composite well, or composite as you guys say, takes me an hour and a half, whereas I can do a glass armor much more expediently. So I think it's just those kind of phase 1, let's get them stabilized, and then we can look at improving and upgrading in phase 2 and 3. So I think phase treatment, it has a really important place.
I'll let you call a composite composite, as long as you don't call football soccer.
And you have hygienists and hygienists. And actually, I remember when I said, my nurse helps me, and they all thought I was a medical doctor, because you don't call them nurses, dental nurses.
Right, but, it's funny, because in the United States, they call the assistant a dental assistant, but the patients all call them your nurse. I mean, for 30 years, patients say, your nurse said, and it's like, I've always thought a dental assistant should be called a nurse. That's what you call them in the UK.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what they call them around the world. And then in America, the only people that calls them dental assistants is people that work in dentistry. And every old man that's ever been in my office calls her my nurse, and she should be a nurse.
Well, nurse is a very privileged, honored position, and I think we should elevate dental nursing.
And the other thing that I think is very confusing around, especially the United States, is when half the dentist at the end of their name says DDS, and the other half says DMD, and you say BDS. And the patient, when they go to physicians, there's MDs and DOs, and there's chiropractors. And for the consumer, I think there should be a different initial if there's something different. Like there is something different between a doctor, a chiropractor versus an MD. But there's zero difference between a DMD and a DDS, yet it generates massive confusion among patients, especially in a transient society like where I live in Phoenix or LA, where people are moving and going. And I just think dentists should...
it should be a bit more of a universal scale.
They should get together and change them all to one, because the customer is who we should be focused on. And this doesn't bother the dentist, and I'm not saying it does bother the dentist. It bothers the consumer.
It's a historical...
It's crazy. It's crazy. So do you have that in England? There's a lot of people in here with dental licenses from other countries that instead of BDS have other things after their name?
I think really in England it's not a big issue, and people actually, they might think you're a specialist, but actually that appeal goes quite quickly, because I think patients judge within the first visit or two and they buy the person. So you could have 20 initials, which is great, and it really helps you and it probably gives you a head start. But at the end of the day, when a patient comes in and you having a one-on-one journey with that person, they'll judge you on who you are and how confident you are and your people skills and your technical skills. So I don't think people are too hung up about what you've done, or are you this or are you that, but they really look at, does he like, did I like him? Were they good? Was I seen on time? Did they hurt me? Universal things, really. The funny thing we have is that if you're from the physicians, you're allowed to be called doctor, but if you're a Royal College of Surgeons, it's a Mr. So we historically have, you're a Mr. if you're a normal person, then you're a doctor if you're an MD, and if you're a surgeon, you're back to a Mr. So if you go to an NHS hospital and see a consultant, he'll be called a Mr. So that's a very weird thing. So you have Mr. Dr. Mr. So I think that's something we need to sort of sort out.
I think I can smell a successful practice in a second. I mean, just it is. I don't have to look at the financials, and like you just reek of success, because when I go into 100 dental offices around the world, and I'm talking to a dentist like you, and the staff comes in and says, "Mrs. Jones has been waiting 10 minutes for you to go see her," and they'll walk in there. 9 out of 10 dentists will walk right over to the X-ray, look at the X-ray. Okay, she has a DO on 3 and a MO on 4, and if she wants to do that now, Ryan, tell her if she wants to do that now, we can do that now, and then gets up and leaves. I'm like, holy shit! Behind you was a human.
Yeah.
What's the chance you would do that?
0?
I know.
Yeah.
And everybody, and then when you start talking about the soft stuff, 90% of the audience can say, knock out the soft stuff and tell me what kind of glass ionomer do you use, what bonding agent do you use. They want all this stuff. But the real stuff is going in and saying, Neel, how are you?
Yeah.
Glad to be
how
here.
How that person feels.
Yeah, and how you make them feel is the only thing they're going to remember.
Absolutely.
Not the glass ionomer, the bonding strength, or whether you had 5 initials behind your name. And it's
Absolutely. Just same thing with your hotel stays or checking in at the airport. You can get away with bad food if they made you feel great.
But so how can you teach these kids who what you're talking to now is they think they're successful because they always made A's in calculus and physics and geometry. And every time they did, they bring home their grade cards and mommy'd say, "You're so smart, you're so smart." And dad'd say, "My little precious made the honor roll. She's the dean's list." And she's sitting there saying, "I got an A in calculus and physics and chemistry." And some fat bald guy saying, "None of it even matters. It's, are you a human or not? And all the soft skills matter. And how are you going to relate to that grandma and Mrs. Jones? That's what matters. And your valedictorian bullshit isn't going to carry you an inch down the street."
Well, it's interesting you say that, because really what I've learned from having the practice the last few years and improving my leadership skills, it's all come down to improving my communication skills. So when I looked at my learning needs of what courses I need, there are a few things I wanted to do, and travel plays a part of that as well. So I went to Cape Town, go to the States and learn from these great guys. But actually a lot of it is like going to your lecture or Mike's lecture on communication. And really, if you can understand communication, and you can understand human beings, and it'll help you so much in life, with your relationships, with your staff, with your patients. It's a universal language, and whether it's non-verbal or verbal communication, you've got to have those great skills, because you'll be a poorer human being if you haven't got them.
And how could, what would you recommend on their journey to how to learn more about the soft people skills?
I think really you've got to look at what's around you and look at the great communicators around you and learn from them. I think looking at books and NLP and hypnosis and looking after nervous patients, all these things will help you improve your skills. And really, it's a matter of, again, finding the right people around you who are those great orators and learning from them.
When you went to Cape Town, was that to see Howie?
Yeah, so Howie's a great guy, enjoyed there. We went to IFED, so that was last Christmas time, I think.
IFED?
International Federation of Aesthetic Dentistry. So some great guys over there in South Africa, really looked after us well, and a beautiful country to go to as well.
So tell them about Howie. I think he's the greatest, one of the greatest of the greats.
I think Howie is a fantastic person, and he always has time for everybody. You know, he's a humble guy, but actually the stuff he's doing is amazing. And he's a wet-fingered dentist. He's doing the dentistry, he's not just preaching about it. And he comes to England quite a lot as well. I know he's on that plane a lot and getting his air miles like Leanne and you guys do. So again, really motivated to put the word out there. And again, I think this has come from Facebook and from the world being a smaller place. We've got access to these great guys from all over the world. And before, when I qualified 20 odd years ago, the only education we had was our local 20, 30 mile radius, and they'd have a little speaker. Now we've got the whole globe, and it's accessible. So, and it's going to get even more so. So I'm really interested to see how, as you said, we should have a universal theme, universal sort of ideas of what we should be doing. And I think that's going to get more and more congruent.
But I think the greatest thing about Howie is I've never seen a human being in my life who could drink an entire pitcher of beer and then do a headstand.
I'll leave that to him, I think.
That's impressive. I can't
lots
do
of training, I think.
Most dentists can't do a headstand sober. He can drink an entire pitcher of beer and then do a headstand.
Right, I'll have to ask him to show me that when I see him next.
that is, and his implantology work
Absolutely
is just
beautiful. And again,
crazy, insane.
Periodontists really have come to the forefront in the last 5-10 years. You know, when I learned to do implants about 10 years ago, it was about bone, and then we know that more importantly, it's about the tissue. So really, periodontists have come from just being, you know, posh hygienists,
I think,
to actually being an integral part of implantology.
I think of all the 9 specialties recognized by the American Dental Association, periodontology changed the most in my career. But I think what's the funniest thing, I don't know if it's funny, but it makes me chuckle, is the world's dentists can't even agree on a definition of what is an implant failure. I mean, these implants have lost half their bone and they're still chewing and the gum's bleeding and there's pockets, and you can't even get a scientific consensus of what is a perio failure. I mean, basically, if it's functioning and there's periodontal disease all around, periimplantitis, and I want to ask you another weigh-in question. So Gordon Christian, who in America is considered the god of dentistry, he's 80 years old. He reminds me of Yoda. He's just such a great guy. He's been everyone's mentor in something at some time in their career. He thinks that he's always noticed that when you put on a low-cost ring, a base metal ring, it's not silver, palladium, gold. It causes that tattooing. And when we would put on porcelain to non-metal crowns, the base metal the acid in the gums would suck out the metals, and you get a tattooing of the gum tissue. He thinks a lot of the periimplantitis is a body's response to base metal titanium.
Wow.
And he thinks that that's part of the inflammatory problem going on is a base metal. And I was wondering, do you think these new ceramic implants, do you think that will give them a space for introduction to see if that's really an issue?
Well, I think metal definitely has its pace. It's tried and tested. And again, it's down to individual susceptibility. So probably a more interesting thing is who is getting those kind of conditions, and then we can figure out, okay, we're safe to use that on you guys, but maybe on you, we should use ceramic. And ceramic's definitely in its early days, and it hasn't been tested. But going back to what you were saying about we can't agree on terminology, and a lot of British dentistry is supposed to be based on evidence-based dentistry, and every paper I've read always says at the end, we need more info, and in this study, and these are the limitations. So I think really dentistry is kind of half peer review, half what we think is going to work, a little bit on the evidence, but really it is just suck it and see. We just have to try these things. But the bigger picture would be actually not to just try and see what works best, but why is it happening and to whom? And dentistry works brilliantly on some people and doesn't work at all on others, and it really is that adaptive capacity, whether it's putting something high in occlusion or they're susceptible to gum disease. So I think there's genetic markers that are going to come in, and stem cell technology. That's going to be a little bit more interesting on finding the bigger picture, I think.
And back to even the tattooing of the rings, it's far more common in Irish and English than people of color.
Yeah.
So
why do you think that is?
They think it was from the pH of the skin. That's what Gordon was saying.
Not to do with the genetic sort of discoloration, the different color mucosa. Maybe you don't see it as much.
Yeah, it could be that. But Gordon was telling me that people like me, like Irish, actually have a more acidic skin.
Really?
The pH is different than someone of color.
I'd have to look that up. That sounds very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. But hey, we went 7 minutes over time. I just want to say, really, I'm a huge fan of yours. For you to come down on your day off and come down and see me and Ryan for an hour.
And your family.
I just think you're a really cool dude, and thank you so much. And by the way, tell your friend at Dentinal Tubules, Drew, that I'm his biggest fan.
Fantastic.
I think what you're doing with the study club is amazing. Maybe someday you can do that with Dental Town. Maybe there's something Dental Town. I've always told Drew, I said, we're basically the same thing.
Yeah. Why don't we come to Arizona? We'll bring a load of people, and you can show
Dental
us how to do
Town,
handstands and drink a pint.
Dental Town and Dentinal Tubules should be networking together. We're all serving, but kudos to you. And tell them again, how do they find your Facebook page on Facebook.com Turbine? Facebook.com/turbines.
The best thing to do is just find me, Neel Jaiswal, and friend me, and I'll put you onto the group. But you won't be able to find the group.
Spell it, Neel Jaiswal.
So Neel, and Jaiswal is Jaiswal, and it'll say clinicians page in brackets, and just PM me, and I'll add you to the group. Love to have some international followers.
And can they email you?
Yeah, if they want to email me, again, it's neeljaswal@hotmail.com.
And then your website is neeldentistry.com. And then your British Academy of Microscope Dentistry is BAMD.co.
That's exactly right.
All right, dude.
Love to hear from you guys.
Thank you again so much.
So much. What a privilege.